I like to be told I'm wrong all the time. I think most great musicians and people that love to continue to learn are like that. They want to be shown something different.
Yeah.
But I think because I've got a lot of experience in so many different styles of music, I think I know roughly where it's going. And I think the passion I have really for it is the people, is knowing that if something's not quite right, there's plenty of people in the music industry who would be like, that's shit. You should give up, mate. Go and get a job, blah, 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 because it's rubbish. Whereas if I hear a spark of something fucking really cool in there, I want to help them.
Yeah.
I want to say to them, I think I understand where we're going with this. Is it like this? And I'll chuck a whole load of references. You say you like this band. Well, I kind of think that band listened to that band, perhaps, and have you heard that? And if suddenly we have that conversation and they're like, yeah, you get it, then I'm like, great, now we're talking. And then once you've got the trust, then they're open to ideas and they don't mind you saying line 3 in the latest shit.
To line it all up. So, Keiron Pepper, thanks for joining us today. Some people won't know you, some people will, and they'll probably think, oh, okay, Kieron, yeah, it's the Prodigy, but there's loads more stuff to you than that, which we'll talk about some of those things. But you just mentioned Radiophonic Workshop. Let's start there. So how did that come about?
That came about through our mutual friend, Cliff Jones.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Who was doing some work at the BBC, I think probably to do with his sync company. And then he had the good fortune to sort of work with those guys. I maybe met them before, but he ended up managing them. This is around 2012, I think. In 2013, they decided they want to do some shows. And they'd already done one show. And this was a kind of a band that never was. Because it consists of all the old faces. Well, not all of them, because the kind of the great ones that are no longer with us, like Daphne Orum's no longer with us, obviously, and Delia Derbyshire, who everyone kind of cites as being the kind of the biggest pioneer. She's obviously no longer with us. But they did a piece when she was still alive, I think it was 2009, in a big quarry where they all got together and they designed this kind of big soundscape thing that was all lit and had, I don't know, maybe fireworks or something. It wasn't actually there, but it sounded amazing. And then 2013, there was a gig before that at the Roundhouse, and then they decided they wanted to do it and take it out on the road, and Cliff was like, okay, this is great. And then he gave me a call and said, do you fancy playing drums for the Radiophonic Workshop? And I was like, fuck yeah, of course I do, because I was, then just the words, Radiophonic Workshop then sends me back to being 9 or 10 and seeing those documentaries on, Dick Mills making the sounds of the TARDIS sounds, all that kind of stuff, and that name has been, very much in my musical vocabulary for a long time because I was a big fan. So yeah, I was like, you're joking. So what it was like the main kind of guys the surviving guys that have come through there, most of them. So you've got Dick Mills, which is the oldest guy, who did the Doctor Who theme tune with Delia Derbyshire by, her making all the sounds on the oscillators and then pitching it to get the tones and then cutting them into notes and then, stretching the whole of the reel-to-reel all the way down the Maida Vale corridors to sort of find the edit points and when it made a mistake, all that kind of stuff. There's him. There's Peter Howard, who did the 80s Doctor Who theme and was did a lot of things, I think stuff for Newsround and things like that. Paddy Kingsland, who did a lot of soundtrack stuff, whose name you might have heard. He did a lot of those albums that you would see in charity shops. Yeah. As you're scanning through it, oh wow, a radiophonic one,
Yeah.
And then Roger Lim, who did a lot of theme tunes. I mean, they all did theme tunes for radio and TV. Their repertoire is huge. Roger Lim's stuff includes the Box of Delights, which I loved when I was a kid.
Yeah.
The music from that's incredible.
Yeah.
So, and also Roger Lim, when we were kids, was the voice of the BBC, like the continuity guy. So when you had that, and on BBC One we have, that's him. So when I first met him, Oh wow! So you immediately feel like you're at home, you know.
Brilliant.
So yeah, really great guys, and we just set about realizing in a live scenario the tracks that they've done. With obviously the Doctor Who is the big sell and is the big piece that we do at the end, and versions of that. Whether it's the Delia Derbyshire one, the Peter Howell one, and loads of incidental music, depending on how much time we've got and if it's particularly geared to a Who event. Sometimes we've done these Who conventions and other things like that. So that's really exciting. And then Mark Ayres, forget Mark Ayres. Mark Ayres is basically he's the archivist and he's the one who pulled everything together. Phenomenal guy, does a lot of soundtrack stuff now and does a lot of re-editing and remixing a lot of the Doctor Who stuff. I think he came on board because they're all different Who's. One of them's a Pertwee Who, one of them's a Baker Who. And then Mark Ayres, who's the youngest at 50 something, he does this. He was on board for the Sylvester McCoy stuff and then stuff they're on after, and he's the archivist. So he put everything together. And when BBC decided that they were going to stop the Radiophonic Workshop in 1998, I think it was, then loads of those reel-to-reels got reused or shelved, or I don't know what happened to them, but I think Mark Ayres was the one who was like, wait. And he put them on the format at the time, which 98 may have been DAT.
Yeah.
The newest thing.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe he started putting a few bits on minidisc and then was like, no, what are you doing? but then did that and then obviously then into WAVs and AI files. And so he's got all the sounds, and all and cleans up episodes and, and he's the archivist, but he's the guy that obviously pulled it all together, worked very closely with Peter Howell to sort out the main stage setup. And so on stage, it's like a hybrid of old analog gear, Paddy's there with his Jupiter 8, which obviously weighs a ton. And then you've got main stage and things like that. But you've also got weird and wonderful things like theremins and whatnot. I'm sitting there with my full kit and a sampler and a bass station with a sequencer on it and just making lots of noise. And things like this. So, which is really radiophonic, loads of fun, And so that was it, and then we just did loads of, did Glastonbury and Blue Dot Festival under the Jodrell Bank, big radar thing, and had the honour to do the Apollo 50th anniversary thing at Goon Hilly last year with public service broadcasting. That was phenomenal.
Wow.
Really great. And he had all the people like talking about the moon landing and footage, rarely seen footage that was being shown and people being talked through it. It's great. Very different. Yeah. Very different to Prodigy.
Well, yeah. But I guess with that thing of like, even though I was at the Prodigy stuff, at the time was like cutting edge of tech, but you're playing live at the same time. I guess this is kind of really old tech, new tech, and can you play along at the same time?
Oh no, this is an interesting point. So with the prod stuff, that was a lot easier because it's all done on a DAW or whether it's coming from. I mean, back in the day when I was doing it, Liam was still triggering tracks off of his W30, so like Poison and songs like that was literally like a jack out the back of his W30 straight to the PA, and that's why it sounded huge. And so, but that. No, whether it was that or it was the DAW stuff, whether you've done it on Cubase or Logic or Ableton or whatever later on down the line, that's to a fixed BPM and pretty much always 4/4. And so, because of that and the phenomenal monitoring you get, it's like dancing behind a kit. It's just full on and it's metronomic on it. Whereas radiophonic stuff, bless them, is slightly more difficult, as in that they're doing the old tracks when they weren't using click tracks or anything like that, or anything that was like kind of digital. It was all analog. So if you did have some kind of click, it would be someone tapping something or a metronome off or an oscillator, and then because of the pitching differences, that would change. Or they would try and tap one along, which they did for Doctor Who and some of the other things, and it was just all over the place. And so my friend Bob, who now does stuff with the Radiophonic Workshop, and I was in one of my first ever bands with realtv.
Oh, right.
He came on board, and he's a real whiz with all of that stuff. So he kind of found a great click that would go just in between and wouldn't jump radically between 10, 15 BPM. Do you know what I mean? Because that can be a real showstopper. But yeah, so that was really interesting. And with Radiophonic Workshop, you've got vocal cues as well. With my inner monitoring, I've got so that the click going on, which depending on who submitted the track, the click sound will be different. So that can be quite annoying when you're used to a dang, dang, and then you get a what is it? And so you've got that going on, plus the section 3 in 2, 1, and then you really know, so cues in. And so that's kind of a lot to take in when you're working with new tracks, but also very funny hearing their voices and how bored they are. Bar 63, 64, 65, and tacit. And then you've got, then it goes from the sublime to ridiculous. So some things that you've got the cushioning and the kind of all the what's the word? You've got all the kind of everything you need there to get you through the track, and you feel really comfortable. And then it goes to the ridiculous, where we did a track with Paul Hartnell from Orbital, and it's in 11/8 and quite fast. And so that was a big debate right at the beginning, how we were actually counting it, because some people are like counting the full 11. I was going 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 1 2, and then someone was going 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 1 2 3 4. Oh, so all these weird accents were pushing and pulling. So had that going on, plus the vocal cue, plus the beginning of the track was Roger Lim talking, doing his voiceover thing, like the electricity thing. You know, you used to get those electricity ads, where you'd be like, you know, Billy, don't go up, you know, that kind of thing. Electric shock, kind of. What to do when you in an event of electric shock. So at some point you've got a click that's just about there in 11, a cue of what section's coming up, and Roger Lim at the same time in your in-ear monitors, and trying to do a gig, and with the adrenaline. And you know what? Most of the time that you get away with that. You know? And especially if you've done lots of rehearsing, which I didn't. And the funny. The worst time, but also the time that I feel most proud about, that's why you're getting the story now, is we did a Maida Vale session for Radio 6 Music, and we were doing 4 tracks. I think it's a standard deal. You go in, you record 4 tracks. No, you record 1 for later on, and then you do 3 live. So literally, as people are listening to it on the radio, seat of the pants. Yeah. And we decided that we were going to do. Well, I don't know why we didn't record this one. It's ridiculous. We decided that was one of the ones we would do live. It's called E-Shock, the track. And got through it. And I worked out some new bits that would make it a lot easier and sonically pleasing, with some tapping around the kit, which also helped me to count the 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. That kind of stuff. Got the headphones on. Everybody's there. But because Radiophonic are all kind of pretty much keyboards and main stage, the only person that you're hearing in the room is maybe Paddy's guitar and the theremin and my drum kit. And so if you were to take the headphones off, you hear nothing apart from these things playing. And so getting through the track is really great, really buzzing. Oh my God, I'm just like live on Radio 6 Music. This is cool. I'm smashing it. 11/8, come on. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm not a technical drummer, you know me. Do you know what I mean? Self-taught, and it's like one of those things where, oh, okay, this is cool. I'm actually going to get a little bit of kudos from this, even if it's in my own mind. Yeah. And I get to the breakdown section and roll around the kit and catch the headphones, and they come off. And I'm like, and then suddenly I'm in silence because everyone's there playing along. Luckily, it's a part where I'm supposed to stop. I roll around the kit to stop, and I land the fill. It's all cool, but the headphones are off. And now I'm like, oh my God, oh fuck, So and I put them back on, and I can't hear anything. And of course, I've unplugged it again. So put them back on, get the extension plug back in. And then I'm hearing tick, 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 tick. And where's that fucking one? I've got no idea. Do you know what I mean? And and then I'm just hearing where people are at, and I'm, oh, there's the one, and then I hear the cue, and no, that's not the one, you know, because they try and land the section, and here on here, and when they put the accent in their speech, you know that's the one. But this is a fast 11/8.
Oh God!
And so I think I've got it, and then I haven't, and then I think it's like the last 2 bars of that breakdown. I just get it.
Oh.
I'm hearing, I'm like, is it? And I'm in, and I got it. I nailed it.
Wicked.
But it was one of those moments where my heart was
yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. So it's an interesting thing to be involved with. For sure.
That's amazing. It kind of reminds me we're doing the when me and Steve White did the Who thing with no rehearsal. won't get fooled again. So it's like 17 bars of the synths and shit.
Oh, is this the Bubba O'Reilly thing?
Well, I won't get fooled again. Yeah.
Yes.
And they had a CD, and it had Keith Moon's count-ins, which are him playing the cowbell, and it's the bit where he's supposed to come in, he just shouts now, so he knows when to stop playing. But then you've got the guy from The Faces, Kenny Jones. Kenny's count-ins, which are just ridiculous, and then you've got Simon Phillips, which are ridiculous. So Steve had his own put in, but he was so obsessed with like this, he forgot how many bars it was before he does the opening drum fill. So he looks like
the drum fill.
Yeah. So he looks over to me, and I just go 13, 2, 3, 4, because he comes in on the down bit 17, and he's like, if you hadn't been there, I'd have just guessed. Because the entire track would have been at Live 8.
So good.
But at least it was in 4/4. 11/8. Oh my God.
Oh man, yeah.
That's horrible.
Ding 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 ding. See, in my head, I've got it now.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was months of pain.
Well, let's flip you back to real TV then, because it's kind of like you as really early doors.
Yeah.
So was that kind of like, did you do the whole thing of hearing music when you were a kid and you go, that's it, I want to do that?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always knew I was going to do music. I always wanted to do it. I think it was probably my dad and my mum, the record collections, getting the vinyl out, and maybe kind of, you know, just look. Yeah, I think it's like getting the vinyl out on a Sunday and just pulling it all out. My dad going crazy, but also really pleased that I was taking an interest. So there'd be like Roxy Music or War of the Worlds Gatefold or you know, ELO, you know, and I've always had a massive interest in music, but I've never gone the traditional route. I didn't I had piano lessons. I had like 4 piano lessons, and I fucking hated it because she was, to credit her, she taught me how to play properly, because I was like playing like this, flat, like spreading 3 fingers out to do a chord, whereas, you know, she taught me to crab up and the 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 thing to get a bit of flow, and that was the main thing I got. But then she'd be like, right, can you learn this? And then I'd be like, what?
Yeah.
Is that, you know, I'm trying to work out the notes and stuff. So the reading thing, because I found it quite painful, it just put me off. So I would learn it like that, and then it's that, and then know how it sounded, then play it, and then I'd be playing it back to her, and she'd then take the music away and go, you're not looking at the paper, are you? I'd be like, no, I don't like reading. And so she was trying to push me with that, but I didn't go with that. I just stopped and was like, hey, you know what, I can't be bothered with it. But I pretended that I still had music lessons, because it kind of got me off of some of the PE lessons. I was a bit of a wuss with the whole thing. I wasn't really into the sport thing. And one of the music lessons clashed, much to the dismay of the sports teacher. and I stopped going to the lessons, but didn't tell him.
Right.
So I'm going to the music block and then jam and play stuff, and probably play Axel F or something lame like that.
Yeah.
And it was my... so am I going off massively off piste? I feel like you asked me a question, I'm going on to...
No, it's just about, like, you know, falling in love with music, and then...
Yeah. So it was like playing by ear. And I think that I got the playing by ear thing from my nan, my dad's mum. She used to play piano in pubs. And it was always that, I'll play this one, Brenda. Yeah. And she'd be like, she knew it. Or they'd hum it and she'd find it straight away. She was amazing. And she had this old Hammond organ. And every time I go around there in Plumstead, I'd go and playing the organ. And then she gave me one of these crappy old reed organs where the more notes you press down, the more out of breath it gets, especially when you go down the lower end. And that I had that when I was like 8 or 9. And but I loved it. I loved that whole keyboard. And then it was a case of just learning theme tunes, whether it was The Saint or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Something of the telly. And then writing stuff. But at a very young age, but working out what notes worked out well together, because I didn't know any theory, and it was literally because my nan obviously didn't know any theory. She was just like, just do this sounds good. And so it was, I think, because the whole interval thing I understood from a very early age, because of I've told this story a couple of times actually in interviews. I'll say it again. It's basically when my mum was doing the hoovering, to generate a tone, I would sit on the stairs and I would find the note and then go all the way up to the octave. And so, finding that, that sounds happy, that sounds sad.
Yeah.
Do you know? And so I was very aware of that. So that helped me, I think, to find my own way around the keyboard. And then it was like I was playing keys, and then someone wanted to do a band at school.
Yeah.
And then it was like, but keys is really, really lame. So, and then it was a case of, right, I'm going to teach myself how to play guitar. And I think it was a case of someone telling me what the strings were, and then working out for myself. Because I had such an interest in it, and I wanted to do it myself, it was a case of like, right, so that's an E string, and I'm looking at it with the keyboard. Yeah. So that must be F, and that must be F sharp. And I knew that the chord of D was, D, F sharp, and A. So it was finding those notes on that, and then finding that chord. Yeah. And so by the time I got round to actually looking at a book, I'd worked out most of the chords for myself, major and minor. But all the fingering was different. Yeah, cool. Because you're supposed to do it in a certain way. Like when I play an E chord, I play it different to everyone else, because I'm literally, I put the 3 fingers in a row. Right, okay. It was logical. But everyone's like, no, you've got to put that one there. Well, why?
Why would you do that?
Yeah. But obviously, and that kind of, I think it helped me in certain areas, but definitely hindered me later on. Yeah. When you get to play with proper musicians like yourself, when you're like, right, okay.
Yeah, but the thing is, I came from the same thing as you, though, not with the sort of background of a nan showing me to stuff, but fell in love with music and got a bass guitar, never had a lesson.
Did you go straight to bass?
Yeah, straight to bass, because of the Bunnymen, and I heard the Bunnymen when I was having breakfast. They played Cutter on Radio 1. I finished off my cornflakes, and that just like, it's not a song that's going, oh baby, it sounds like another world. Yeah, and then they were playing the next, like 6 months later, they were playing at the Birmingham Odeon. Oh, I'm going. And then they come out, and I'm just like, yeah, they're all cool, but that guy there, which is Les, on bass, like, I'm doing that. That's what I'm doing. I want one of those.
That's great.
But then I started playing along to records, just eventually working out, that kind of sounds good. And then eventually you work out how you need to tune up, and then you go, it doesn't sound as good anymore. But then you start to figure it out. Yeah. And, your technique's all wrong. And then people go, why have you got your thumb over, and why is this? And it's like, well, that's how, you built it yourself. It's like Curtis Mayfield tuned his guitar to the black notes on the piano. So pretty much it's always an F sharp major. Yeah. Yeah, I do that a lot. I do a lot of cheating, because I've always done that, whether it's playing drums. That's a funny story as well. I'll tell you about that in a minute. If it's with keys, then I had that mapped out. That was kind of easy. But with the guitar, I would find shapes that worked and slid them up until they sounded good. Do you know what I mean? The D shape sounds good there. The C shape sounds good there. So I wouldn't know the map of the fretboard as in like every single note, because I never could be bothered to work all that out, even though later on I did. And then it was just like bodging stuff, isn't it? And so, but also you get to know sounds. If you want the guitar to sound like that, you've got to palm mute it or dig in a little bit there, or it was finding it yourself, which I think is what it's all about, really, to really have it as part of your very soul, isn't it? It's like you live and breathe it, because you know the language and you know how to find those sounds. I play lots of instruments, but I'm a master of none of them, but I do know, I think, how to get a really good sound most of the time. If I don't, I want to know why not and how I can do it, Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, it takes it to the drums as well, because obviously you haven't had a drum lesson, have you? But you can play the drums.
No, that was from I was in my first ever band was called the Changelings. This is going back to school. And forming a band and learning how to play guitar. So I was actually doing something that was half cool. And it was a real mix. So you've got the guitarist, Sam, who was into Velvet Underground, Dan, the drummer, who's into The Doors, very much into John Densmore's playing. I was into The and Cocteau Twins and The Cure. And John Sherrington was into The Who. He was a bass player. And so that was a great collection of people, very kind of steeped in old British music, really, which is great, but very different as well. I think kind of the 80s thing going on, and there was very, very sort of 60s, 70s. So it was quite well-rounded and it was quite a psychedelic kind of band, lots of jamming. But the drummer, Dan, who's still one of my best friends, I still speak to him now. And he's the reason that I do drums. I have done drums, and I've been known for doing drums. It's because of him, because he was the drummer, and he was like, "Oh, I don't want to be a front man. Don't want to do drums anymore." I was like, "All right, let's swap round." Because I wasn't that bothered about singing. I didn't think I had a particularly good voice, and I was more into just playing music with mates and having fun and doing gigs. And so the Changelings was originally me on guitar and keys and doing a bit of singing, and then Dan then came to the front. I went onto the drums, but first played open-handed.
Right. Okay. Blimey.
Because I used to play drums in the school music rooms with a with an old kick drum on its side with a coat on it and a snare drum, because there wasn't even a proper drum kit then. And playing like that. Yeah. Almost like what do you call it, Bobby Gillespie and
Mo Tucker as well. Yeah.
So then when I went onto a full kit, I was then open-handed, and Dan was like, "No, you're doing it wrong." But I think if I'd have stuck with that, I'd have actually had something kind of cool. Because Puffy from Faith No More was like that, and he's an incredible drummer. Yeah. Anyway, Dan was the one who I would sit with Dan and listen to Doors tracks, and then watch him go around the kit and watch him how he did stuff. And again, it was one of those things where I'm so passionate about music and I loved it so much that I rehearsed every night in the village hall. I had my first drum kit for 40 quid, an old Maxim. It was shit, but it had that sound. It was good. And I managed to tweak it enough for it to sound good. And after school, I'd go there and smack the shit out of it until there's complaints.
Wicked.
Yeah, I had my own key as well to the village hall.
Flipping heck.
So when it was a bit later on, and don't go down the pub, and because where I lived in a little village, getting back from Chelmsford, my mum would lock me out. Like, you're too late. Sorry, you're out. And I had a key for the village hall, so I'd go and sleep. I put a sleeping bag in my drum kit, in my kick drum for the sound, and it came in handy when I got locked out at home.
Brilliant. But I love that. It's that thing you're like, after school, go to the village hall and just play drums.
Yeah.
Because it's that passion thing. It's like, and it's like pretty much not pretty much every single person I've spoken to, whether they've been like, they're an artist or an engineer or, whatever, they're doing music. It's that thing, well, I had to do it. And it's like you have those people who fall, like you're in bands with at school or whatever, and then people start to sort of, it's the attrition rate, isn't it? When the reality of, well, actually, I probably should get a job. And then
but you never have that, do you?
No.
When you're in a position like us, where you're blessed with the ability to do it, that you're right, there isn't an option. Yeah. It's like this is what I do. I mean, sometimes I've heard myself saying this is what I do, and I think, oh, you prick. But there's been moments in my life where I'm a big believer in the whole kind of universe looking after you and stuff. And there's been moments in my life where I have gone, you know what? I've had a good innings here. Fuck it. I need to do something different. I'm going to go and be a long distance truck driver or work in forestry or something. Do you know what I mean? Because of the ups and downs with it, which we love. Yeah. And then there's always been something that's happened. Gone. Yeah. There you go. No, carry on. Yeah. And so I've had quite a few of those, and so I feel that that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And I love it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So that whole thing then, and then you got realtv together. Obviously, like you got the whole sort of school thing.
Yeah, realtv came about because I was in a band after changing. Changing kind of fell apart after 18 months or something. Sandwich University, Then I got into another band. That was JVD, which was like a history teacher from the rival school, which was funny. That didn't last very long. But they used to program their stuff. They used to do demo cassettes, and the drums were programmed on an Alesis HR16, which I fucking love the sounds on that still. And so when they gave me their cassette, I was like, who's drumming? That sounds amazing. But it's a drum machine. So, and then they lent the drum machine to me. So then for the new songs, I could program it. So what I would play would be on the next cassette. So that was the method. And then I was like, why don't we use this live? And then I started thinking about playing along to metronomic stuff like beats and stuff like that. And at the time, you've got to remember that, Primal Scream had just done the loaded thing. Soup Dragons had jumped on the bandwagon. I was a massive Soup Dragons fan who massively changed their sound, from really kind of early scratchy indie stuff, to the 60s, kind of this is our art, through to after Backwards Dog. And so I wanted to do stuff that was like that. And there was a band called Garp, as in the world according to Garp, and they were from Southend and used to play up the Pink Toothbrush where
I know it.
Where Depeche Mode used to play, and we used to go up there, and this is like now getting to the point where we go out and get off our heads and that kind of thing, and that band used samples. I'm like, oh my god, this is cool. Right. And they had a drummer called, I can't remember who the first drummer was. Oh, he's going to kill me for that. He was a lovely guy, really lovely guy on drum. And then the guy that took over him was Julian from Nights to Red, who went on to support Depeche Mode. And so he did Garp for a bit, and then he fucked off to do the 101 tour, I think it was, or maybe it was a little bit after that. And so I got asked if I'd join Garp, and I was like, oh, absolutely, I'm definitely going to do that. So that was then working out how to do it with a click or with a click with an amp by the side of me. No, that's too loud. And then it was like, no, let's put some samples on that are percussive through the amp. And then it was, playing different venues that have got different monitoring systems or none. And then it was back to the click, so working all that, that's where I kind of cut my teeth with the playing to a click thing. And then we got a bit sick of that. Well, I've got Jay Butler, who he sings in a band called Grand Theft Audio, and he's a really good friend of mine still. And he was on guitar. Got him in because he was the real deal, kind of punk style. He was like a massive Pistols fan, massive Steve Jones fan, and had a really great sound. And we got him into the band to sort of kind of beef it up a little bit. But he was a very strong character. I'm quite a strong character, but I'm a balanced guy. I just want things to work. But the singer was a very strong character. Jay was a very strong character, and it kind of got a little bit fractious, shall we say. And then he decided to do a band called realtv. And at the time with Garp, we were doing some dates with Back to the Planet. Fraggle from Back to the Planet is from Chelmsford and a really long-term friend of all of ours. It was actually, sort of skipping back a little bit, he was in a band called the Prodigal Sons. And when I saw them play, which was very early doors, that's when I was like, oh my God, this is a band playing Chelmsford and I know them and I can do this. So Fraggle was part of that. And then so after doing the Back to the Planet tour, Jay and Fraggle got together with Frag's brother playing drums, Johnny from Garp on bass, who's Johnny Nightingale's the most phenomenal bass player that you won't have heard of, unfortunately, because he's a very quiet person. But I've got to get back in contact with him, and he's a phenomenal player. He like Portrait of Tracy stuff, amazing. Right. And Bob Erland, who I mentioned earlier, who's now working with Real TV, he was like about a 16-year-old kid who's just playing samples on the keyboard, very much like Derry in EMF. Do you know what I mean? But a lot more kind of musical. And so Real TV formed. Then Frag's brother Paul couldn't do it, and they decided they were going to do a Christmas show at the Army and Navy, which a lot of bands were playing at the time in Chelmsford. I think you did it. Yeah. Army and Navy, with John Dunn, who's promoting, right? And so that's where I grew up. Army and Navy that's that scene. That's my childhood. That's my musical kind of youth. And so they decided we were going to do this Christmas gig and that's left Garp, and it was a big fucking deal. Right, yeah. Because they were being managed by the singer's girlfriend's dad. and it was like, I'm got into you, it was like proper, local shit. But the response to it was great, because the GARP gigs, we would sell out the Army and Navy, and this was way before the kind of health and safety was being really taken seriously, and that would get rammed out. We would cram a lot of people in there every time we played. It was like real local hero shit. I mean, nowhere else. I mean, no one had heard of us anywhere else, apart from a few Water Rats gigs, I think. But then Real TV kind of took that audience, and we did a lot of really cool stuff. And what the problem with Real TV was, it was like 5 really strong characters. That on stage it was electric, and in rehearsal we would rehearse. At this point, we'd all decided we were going to, take it super seriously. And we were rehearsing 3 times a week. All of us working at the Royal Mail, because doing the casual stuff where you can pick and choose your shifts, but we'd all do it together and just talk about the band and then rehearse. And that was it. That was it. That was our life. And so it very much was a gang. And we'd drive around and just go, hello, we're here, literally take over the place. And so I think people were all very polite as well as being slightly mischievous. But and so there was a lot of love for us there, and Kerrang really liked us, and we did a lot of good stuff for them. And all that live stuff, and that the whole thing about being in a band and being more worried about your haircut than the middle eight was really cool, until then we had to worry about the middle eight, and then we get into the studio, and we were 5 people that I think we all thought the band was something slightly different than what it was collectively. I mean, I would write a lot of the tracks with Johnny. I'd write a lot of ideas on guitar with Johnny, and they'd get behind the kit. So I was heavily invested in the music of it. And then Frag would come from a different angle with his guitar parts, and come up with the most phenomenal musical, almost medieval parts. But I think we all thought of it in a different kind of way. Jay was, who was the guitarist in GARP, was the front man, became the front man, and excelled in that, and did an incredibly great job at that. But I think he thought it was slightly more punk than it was. I thought it was slightly more dancey than it was. But Johnny was into Faith No More. Bob just held it together doing all the key stuff, and I think he probably would like it to have been a lot more electronic. And I think Frag wanted it to be slightly more crusty in terms of like the Back to the Planet thing. So I'm going on a little bit about it anyway, but it's clearly I'm passionate about it. It was one of those bands that it was everybody learning about what it really feels like to be in a band for 14 hours on the way back from Perth to Chelmsford. It's all the highs and lows, and that's it. I think that's exactly it. When you were talking about why do we do this, why do we love it so much, it's you take the rough with the smooth. There were so many people at that age, my people that I went to school with, that were not doing that and going to work in London and going on a train and having this is my life now. Now I'm on, you're not getting a mortgage yet, you've not bought a house yet, all those kind of questions, and you're like, no, fuck you, I'm doing this. And you knew that those highs that you would get from those gigs, or for the release of something, or for a fucking 5K review, against the 14 hours in a transit van poking each other's faces until one of us freaked out. All those highs and lows, that you'd accept that and go, that's what I've chosen, and I love it.
Exactly. And I think it's so important for people to hear that. So particularly, without sounding like an old geezer, but you get the kind of the YouTube generation of, and also people who can go to college to study pop music now and all that, and their things are on face value a lot, even though they've got more choice and it's probably more difficult to focus and find their gang. But they've got here's someone on YouTube will show you how to play this riff, or show you how to do that. And then you can go here and you can study it legitimately, and you can get on this sort of conveyor belt thing. But you miss that whole, the highs and lows, the battle.
It is that kind of whole relationship thing, isn't it? That pulls you together, and you learn very quickly whether you're going to sink or swim just by who you're on tour with, or who you're in a band with, or who you're in a rehearsal room with. And that's a great life skill to get from it all, isn't it? In terms of the emotional intelligence that gets developed with that. Reading people's thoughts, being really empathetic with what people have got going on in their background, but also trying to get the best out of them, and knowing how to play it. You have to play a few games to get some good results with people. There's something about it that you can't. It's very hard to teach that. You can give examples of and have people talking about it, But yeah, you can't get that off a YouTube thing unless it's someone talking about their specific time.
Yeah.
Or cats are trying to get in. No, denied. Access denied.
But the emotional intelligence thing is really important, because, you know, people go, you know, oh, Brian, he knows, you know, his flipped ideas, and they, you know, you can read about them and all that sort of stuff. But when he was applying them, he knew the room he was in and when not to say, you know, swap instruments or do it backwards, because to some people that would just blow their minds, and you'd be like, they would fall to pieces. The
oblique strategy. I've used that, and then it's gone horribly wrong. Yeah, you've got to know who you're dealing with. Yeah, and it's always about surprising someone, isn't it? That's what makes a great producer, I think, is knowing who you're working with, knowing how to get the best out of them, and also knowing how to surprise people so they actually feel it for themselves, so they get the light bulb moment.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's someone sitting at the back, you know that their part should be turned up. Well, they think their part should be turned up and no one else should be, and they go, let's turn that part up and let's build everything around it.
Yeah.
And that's a bit wonky. It's a bit kind of, well, let's redo that and let's make that the thing, and then it becomes something else. Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. Yeah, for sure. But you're right. You've got to know the people you're dealing with.
Well, and the thing is, it's that kind of background of your experience of being through all that, then puts you into position to understand how much these people that you go into a room with care already, and it's not straightforward. It's like, okay, then maybe the middle eight is a bit shit, but you can't just say your middle eight is shit, because that might be their favourite part of the song. Yeah, and you know, that lyric might be the most, you know, they might have pulled that lyric out of their soul and hidden it for the rest of the band for 6 months. Yeah. Which then brings you onto your role of like the whole artist development stuff, because that's something you're really good at.
I love it.
Yeah.
I really love it. I think it's because, you know, I've been in those situations where most of the people that I work with, the bands and the artists, you know, and I've had that passion about the middle eight. And so I like going in there, and I like being brutally honest, but I also like reminding people that it's just one person's opinion, and that, you know, I don't think it's right, but I think it could be this, but maybe not, you know, and if they prove something, if they go, no, actually it's this because of that, and later on I'm planting the seeds for that, I'm like, fucking hell, great, that's brilliant. I like to be told I'm wrong all the time. I think most great musicians and people that love to continue to learn are like that. They want to be shown something different.
Yeah.
But I think because I've got a lot of experience in so many different styles of music, I think I know roughly where it's going, and I think the passion I have really for it is the people, is knowing that if something's not quite right, there's plenty of people in the music industry who would be like, that's shit. You should give up, mate. Go and get a job, blah, 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 because it's rubbish. Whereas if I hear a spark of something fucking really cool in there, I want to help them. Yeah. I want to say to them, I think I understand where we're going with this. Is it like this? And I'll chuck a whole load of references. You say you like this band. Well, I kind of think that band listened to that band, perhaps, and have you heard that? And if suddenly we have that conversation and they're like, yeah, you get it, then I'm like, great, now we're talking. And then once you've got the trust, then they're open to ideas, and they don't mind you saying line 3 in the middle eight is shit. Let's find something else. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And then they go, no, actually it's line 2. And you're, it's the people, and it's giving people a chance. And I think that's why I've gravitated to doing a lot of stuff around music education, and also bands and solo artists that are at that kind of lower level. There's something really good going on. You know they're going to do something because they're so keen. They've got a vibe with them. They've got some great songs. They're super determined. They work hard. They're working hard. They're not idiots. You know, they're nice people. When you got all of those ticking, then I want to help them get to the point where someone wants to manage them because they're super hot. You know. Or they're about to release something. I want to make sure that they're going to not waste time like I did. That's the highs and lows thing. You know, like having some amazing things, but also the shit that we went through. We learned not to do it again the hard way and the long way, which sounds a little cliche, but it's true. Yeah. If you've got someone that's really desperate to do it in this day and age where things move, you know, quick, 1,000 times as fast as they did back in the 90s, it's, you know, especially with communication and keeping up with whatever's coming up next, you want to kind of afford them the kind of the not to have gone through that time wasting process. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You want to say to them, look, I can cut some corners here in terms of time, not in terms of what you're going to learn or what you're going to feel for yourself, but, you know, there's no point in going around the houses. I can probably second guess where you're going to go with this. Try that, or listen to that, or, you know, get rid of your drummer because they're shit.
Yeah. But, you know, I mean, sometimes it has to be, once you get to know them, it can be that brutal, you know, once you've got the trust there.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like when they're sort of young musicians, it's that education thing. I mean, I got it from Weller. Even though I was in his band, he would play me stuff I would never have thought of listening to.
Yeah.
And you listen to it and you go, and then you get that little light bulb moment where he gets it from. And I'm not talking about stuff you'd imagine. I'm talking like Free. He was so obsessed with Free.
Oh, wow.
And you go, and then you start to work that stuff out. You go, oh, that's why you do that. And then you do your own version and bring it back to what you're doing. And
yeah. I love all that as well. The whole kind of the very many family trees that are out there. You know, there's thousands and thousands of the way that everyone's all connected. You know, and also what they've listened to, and then how the influences have trickled down and how they meet up. I love all of that too. Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah, and it's funny, it's that you know, we're talking about, you know, sort of the artist development, because obviously you got involved with Wargasm pretty early doors, and I was listening to it this morning because obviously I spoke to we chatted to Mitch who producing the stuff.
Oh, and, phenomenal he is, that guy.
Yeah, and he was singing your praises yesterday as well, by the way. But it's funny because I listened to it and I can hear you straight away. I go, that's Kieron thought. Kieron suggested that. I can kind of hear that extra, so it doesn't go down the usual.
Yeah,
sort of
I've had quite a few people
metal
saying that. I think it's because I've done a few similar things with heavier bands. I did a thing called Outpatients with Mikey Goodman from Six, which was which didn't really come to any fruition. I think we're going to revisit that at some point. But it was that kind of mixing guitars and beats and drums and it's, you know, kind of all the stuff I've loved. You know, the mixing of digital and analog and smashing styles together. But to be fair with Wargasm, they had, I think it was 12 tracks on a private SoundCloud link, and the songwriting is incredible already. You know, it was there, and the buzz was there. I think that in the early stages of working with Sam, who I've known for a while, Sam Matlock, I think the trust was there already, because we had a little bit of history, but it was a case of listening to the tracks and where they were going and how they could be enhanced possibly. You know, some of the tracks I thought, you know what, that just needs a good mix to get out. Yeah. But then it was when we sat down, I was like, you know what, should we swap that around? Or why doesn't it start with a breakdown chorus? Or why don't, you know, we do that? Or here's some gnarly sounds, you know, because he was putting a lot of great sounds in, mostly the guitar, all the drum programming. You know, Sam's genius. He's really got it all going on in his head, and he's pretty quick with all that. His lyric writing as well. I don't know if he. I think the other day he was talking about how he wants to get more into lyric writing. I think his lyrics from the off have been fucking spot on. Or him and Milky, you know, both of them together. You know, they're writing those tracks together, and both of them have got these incredible minds that work like so. You know. So together, it's phenomenal. But yeah, so a lot of those early tracks, I was kind of a little bit here, there, a bit of an edit here, had this sound, and then I threw a bunch of old recordings at him, old sort of stuff that's on a hard drive, and said, "Do you fancy doing anything with that?" And so we're starting to work on things like that. Last single was based around that process, and that's very exciting. Yeah, because it kind of validates all those ideas that I had back in the day that I thought, maybe I'll do with something with that one day, and then suddenly it's actually very useful. And when you connect with someone musically, but musical minds connect, that's really addictive. I love that so much. Yeah. So to be able to work with them as part of, you know, the kind of artist development thing is really dead cool. But this is kind of going a little bit further than that now. It's more writing with a mate. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've got to mention the big P. Obviously, we got to bring that and we got to plant it on the table. Of course. I mean, I owe them everything. You know what I mean? That's you know, I think the reason we're probably talking, or the reason we spoke in the first place, or you know, everything, all paths lead to other paths, don't they? Later on, you know, if you get a great opportunity and working with someone like someone like Prodigy, you know, of course that opens so many doors, and then it's what you do with that opportunity. I owe them everything. 100%. Yeah, I'm so grateful to them.